Australia is a beautiful country, with beautiful people. This video is about Australian women, who became princesses and queens, by virtue of matrimony. Born to James Thomson and Mary and Roffey in Sydney, on the 2nd of August 1883, Elsie Caroline Thomson dreamed of becoming a stage actress. But destiny had different plans for her. Elsie Caroline visited India for a stage performance in 1904. When the performance company she worked for staged an opening show in Calcutta, two Maharajas at the audience proposed to her. One of them was Raji Kumar Gopal Saran Narayan Singh, the Maharaja of Tikkari, whom she tied the knot with, as his second wife in 1909. Her parents were against the wedding, as intercontinental weddings were not usual on those days. She converted to Hinduism with a new name, Sita Devi, and became the Queen of Tikkari. In 1913, the Maharaja executed a deed settling £200 a month on her for life, and in 1917, when she was in England, £1,000 on a year on heirs on perpetuity. The couple had no children, as she had some issues with childbearing. But the marriage didn't last long, and the couple divorced in 1921. The allowance was stopped subsequently, and she brought a legal action against the king in Indian courts. Maharaja pleaded that the marriage was not lawful in accordance with Hindu law, and alleged that the bond he had executed in favor of her were executed under the influence of charms, and the erroneous belief that she was his lawful wife. In April 1928, the judges have found that she is entitled to an annuity of £1,100 in perpetuity, and £1,600 in arrears. Elsie died in 1967 in Melbourne, and she was buried at the Cheltenham New Cemetery in Melbourne. Her tombstone reads, Sita Devi, Maharani of Tikkari. Born Elsie Caroline, daughter of James and Mary and Thomson. 1883 to 1967. Molly Fink was born to Wolf Fink, a barrister and Shakespearean scholar, and his wife Elizabeth on the 15th of September 1894, at Melbourne in Melbourne, Australia. At the age of 15, Molly Fink was expelled from Lauriston Girls' School for misbehaviour, which ended her studies. Tragedy struck the family before the First World War, when Wolf Fink died of a ruptured aorta. In dire financial straits, Elizabeth rented an apartment in Hotel Majestic Mansions, to which the family moved. In March 1915, Martanda Bhairava Tondaman, the Raja of Pudukkottai, came to Australia on a visit, and checked in at the Hotel Majestic Mansions, where he met Molly Fink at the dining room. He was smitten by Molly Fink, and subsequently accompanied them when they returned to Melbourne. 5 months later, Martanda proposed to her, and she accepted. The couple got engaged on the 6th of August 1915, and married on the 10th of August 1915, at the Registrar's office in Melbourne. The newlywed couple went to San Francisco in August 1915, to see the Panama exhibition. Martanda returned to India with his Australian bride in October 1915. Molly spent 5 months in India suffering ostracism by the British officialdom, and even surviving a poisoning attempt. On the 22nd of November 1915, Martanda presented his new Maharani to his subjects at a lavish public ceremony in Pudukkottai. However, though a warm welcome was accorded by the people of Pudukkottai state, the government of British India refused to grant her official recognition. Afflicted by a sudden, mysterious bout of vomiting and diarrhea soon after her arrival in Pudukkottai, government medical examiner found traces of oleander, a traditional poison, in her vomitus. For her safety, Martanda left India with Molly in 1916. Their first son Martanda Sydney Tondaman was born on the 22nd of July 1916. To get official recognition for his wife and son, the family moved to London in 1919, but the British government refused to recognise his wife and son. Martanda renounced his own claim to the throne, and nominated his brother, Rajagopala Tondaman as the Raja of Pudukkottai, Martanda settled for an annual pension. Martanda and Molly lived in Kent from 1922 to 1927. Martanda died at Paris on the 28th of May 1928, at the age of 53. Molly wanted his body to be shipped to India and cremated with full state honours, but the government of India refused permission. Eventually, the body was cremated at Golders Green Crematorium in London, as per Hindu rites. Following Martanda's death, Molly's finances began to dwindle. She moved back to London, where she lived with her son, Sydney. Aga Khan III proposed to her soon after Martanda's death, but she rejected his proposal. In her later years, Molly remained aloof and began drinking heavily. She was diagnosed with bowel cancer in 1967. Molly died in Kent on the 22nd of November 1967 at the age of 73. Joan Faulconer was born in Melbourne, Australia in 1915, in a wealthy family engaged in breeding merino sheep. Joan Faulconer met Taili Muhammad Khan at Black Forest in Germany in 1937, where he was seeking treatment for a painful polo injury. Taili was the Nawab of the Palanpur state, a protectorate of the British Empire, under the administration of the British Raj. When he and Joan met, she was 19 and he was 55. The two subsequently became engaged to be married, though the relationship was objected to by Joan's family. For her parents, Taili Muhammad Khan, though a Nawab of a princely state, was unsuitable for being a Muslim who is already married once with a 20-year-old son. Moreover, there was an age gap of 36 years. Palanpur, over which the Nawab rules, had an area of 1766 square miles, a population of about 250,000, and a state revenue of about £82,000 a year. In 1939, Joan eloped and travelled to India to marry Taili. She converted to Islam and was married in an Islamic ceremony. She was denied the title of Begum by the British Raj, which disapproved of marriages between Anglo women and Indian rulers. Joan was also not invited by the British to appear beside her husband during public functions. On the 15th of August 1947, India became independent. On the night of the 14th of August 1947, the last Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten, decided to confer a title of nobility on Joan, allowing her to claim the title of Her Highness in British eyes. But the princely state of Palanpur was dissolved after the independence of India. Joan and Taili lived together until the latter died of cancer in 1957. Joan settled in southern France after her husband's death. She died in 2003. Mary Elizabeth Donaldson was born the youngest of 4 children to Scottish parents, Henrietta, an executive assistant to the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Tasmania, and Professor John Dalglish Donaldson, an academic and mathematics professor. Mary was born and raised in Hobart, Tasmania. Her mother died from complications following heart surgery on the 20th of November 1997, when Mary was 25. In year 2000, Mary was working as a sales director at Bell Property, a real estate firm specializing in luxury property, when she met Frederick, Crown Prince of Denmark. Mary Donaldson met Crown Prince Frederick of Denmark at the Slip Inn, a pub in Sydney, when the Prince was visiting Australia during the 2000 Summer Olympics. Their official engagement was in 2003, and their marriage the following year was the subject of extensive attention from Australian and European news media, which portrayed the marriage as a modern fairytale romance between a prince and a commoner. The couple became officially engaged on the 8th of October 2003 and married on the 14th of May 2004. The couple have 4 children.